Open up like a flower in the moonlight. I've been taking space to mend, to hold me up, cause I'm falling so many.
My encounter with what I believe to be a dogman happened in 2017. I'm leaving Montgomery, Alabama. At the time, I was in a long-distance relationship, and it was her birthday, so I wanted to spend time with her. So I spent the entire weekend whining and dining my girlfriend. Well, Sunday comes around, and I stayed longer than I'm supposed to. Gotta be back in Tallahassee at 9 a.m. for work. It's 1:30 in the morning, and I'm on Highway 90 headed back home. Or so I thought. I get a flat tire. No big deal, I done changed the flat tire on the side of the road before. Mind you, it's pitch black out there, but it ain't nothing to it. I get out, grab the jack, and now I'm in the trunk looking for the little lever that you twist and turn to actually make the jack extend, and realize that I don't have it. So now I'm on the phone with a tow truck company, and the guy asks me exactly where I am, and I'm thinking I'm on Highway 90, but not exactly sure where I'm at. So he's like, look, walk up a little bit and see if you can find a mile marker. Tell me the mile marker you're at, and then I'll come straight to you. He's like, I'm going to stay on the phone with you. That way you feel comfortable because I know it's dark out there. But me, I'm being all toughish. I'm like, nah, I don't need you on the phone. I'm going to call you back. So I go to the trunk, get my backpack. Inside, I always keep a bottle of water, a flashlight, a machete, and an extra magazine for my pistol. So now I'm walking. It's a 2-lane highway. Absolutely no traffic at all. I think for the first 15 minutes of me walking, I only saw one vehicle. And I didn't even bother to try and flag them down, because if I was in their shoes, I wouldn't be picking up some dude on the side of the road at 1:30 in the morning. I'm just walking. And that's when I hear something pacing me in the woods to my right. And there's no mistaking. There is something big pacing me. Every time I take a step, it takes a step. So I switch to the other side of the road, walking on that yellow line on the far left-hand side of the road. I walk another 10 minutes, and then a car comes down the roadway, and of course they don't bother to stop, and I'm not expecting them to. But as the car passes and that sound of the car goes off into the distance, I hear movement again, this time in the woods on the same side of the road that I'm on. But now it's no longer pacing me, there's something running down on me from the woods. So imagine the scene, I hear it coming, so I move to the center of the road. As I'm standing there in the center of the road drawing my weapon, my cell phone rings. But I'm like, that whoever this is going to have to wait, and so I'm scanning the woods trying to see, but I can't see anything. The phone stops ringing and then starts ringing again. And when I answer, it's the tow truck driver, and he suggests something to me that both of our stupid asses should have thought of long before I got out of the car. He's on the phone saying, sir, what you need to do is go to Google Maps and tell me your exact location. And now as he's talking to me, I can hear this thing running at me again from the woods. So I'm like, hold on, sir, listen, something's out here running down on me from the woods. I'm going to have to call you back. So now I'm panicking. I hang up the phone, I hone in on the direction that the sound is coming from, and I start firing my handgun in that direction. Now, I know you're not supposed to shoot at something you can't see or you don't know what it is, but I figure if it's a person out here playing these kind of games in the middle of the night in the dark, then they deserve to get shot. So I fire 4 rounds in that direction, and you can hear it moving back off into the woods. Imagine me standing there in the middle of the road, scared out of my mind, too afraid to turn my attention back to the phone to figure out my location. And every time I felt comfortable enough to reach in my pocket to pull that phone out, it charged at me again. Whatever it was trying to get me off of the road and into the... And I'm like, that, no matter what happens, I'm going to die right here in the middle of this road. So finally, I get the phone out of my pocket, pull up Google Maps, and realize I'm not on Highway 90, I'm on Highway 269. And just then the phone rings again. It's the tow truck driver, and he's telling me that he's found my vehicle. I ask him, sir, are you on Highway 269? He says, no, I'm on Highway 90. I tell him, listen, that's not my vehicle. I'm on Highway 269. Please get here as soon as possible because there is something out here in these woods. Now, hanging up the phone with him, I turn my attention back to the woods. My senses are heightened, and I'm freaking out for real. Like, I'm an emotional mess. Like, a part of me wants to run, part of me wants to cry, part of me wants to scream. Physically, I feel like my bowels are getting ready to move, like I need to pee and on myself at the same time. and then I hear it running down on me again. Every time it's coming from the direction that I got my back turned. So I turn and fire rounds in that direction again until my magazine is empty. Take out the spare magazine, reload it, and now I'm waiting, because at this point in time I done made up my mind that I'm probably going to die right here. No doubt about it. I'm running out of ammo. All I have is this gun and this machete. I'm going to hold out as long as I can. Hopefully the truck driver gets here. But I done committed in my mind that whatever this is that's trying to eat me, it's coming, and I'm going to have to fight it off. Things go quiet for 2 more minutes, and then it charges again. This time, I get a glimpse of it in my flashlight, and it looks like a giant freaking coyote. Now, I'm not sure if you ever found yourself in a situation like that, but there's levels of fear. Like, for me, there was a level of fear that was associated with not really knowing what it was. And it was kind of manageable, because in the back of my mind, I could say it was anything, because I didn't know what it was. But once I realized and saw what it was, the level of fear just elevated to where it was completely unmanageable, because my mind is trying to wrap around and justify what I'm seeing and what I saw, but it can't. It just can't wrap around it. So now I panic, and the next time it charges, I empty the magazine in that direction. So now I find myself standing in the middle of the roadway, no more ammunition. The only thing I have to defend myself is a machete. And mentally, I done gone to a dark place, because I'm feeling like I'm not coming back out of this. But no matter what, I'm going to get some of you while you getting some of me. Hands down, you're not going to eat me. I'm going to get a piece when you get a piece. So now I'm moving out of the center of the road into the direction of where I just saw it. And I'm like, listen, it don't make no sense for me to sit here and wait and be terrorized, man. If we going to do this, let's just do it. I'm moving in that direction, and boy, I see them headlights from that tow truck, and I swear to God, it was like Jesus himself had descended from the sky and came to save me. That's how I felt. And when I climbed in that tow truck, I know I was a mental and emotional wreck, because the tow truck driver sees me get inside his vehicle with the machete in hand, and he says, dude, what the hell is going on out here? And I explained to him that there was something in these woods that was trying to run me down and eat me, and it looked like a giant coyote. Now, I'm expecting a tow truck driver to look at me like I'm crazy, brush me off, but he doesn't. He hurries up, turns that truck around, and starts headed back to my vehicle. When we get there, he's acting just as paranoid as I was. Hops up out of the tow truck, changes the tire for me, pulls up a QR code on his phone for me to pay him. I pay that man his money, and we both get the hell out of there. Get this, by the time I'm moving again, it's 4 a.m. I get home and I'm emotionally drained. Go to work and I'm feeling sluggish and tired. Get home from work and I sleep from 5 p.m. to 5 a.m. the next day. Now listen, I'm not a dude that was really into the whole paranormal kind of creepy. It wasn't until a year later that I ran across a YouTube video about the missing 411 till I realized that that area that I was in around Chattahoochee, within a 90-mile radius of that area, hundreds of people have gone missing. And I'm convinced that I would have been one of those people had I let that thing run me into those woods. I'm convinced. Over the years, I've struggled with sexual sin. Being a single woman can be hard. And being a woman of faith and understanding that backsliding has real consequences, I always try my best. But periodically, I would have these spells where I needed some physical attention. And instead of just hooking up with some random dude, I would, self-pleasure. Normally, it's a quickie. But this particular time, my son is at his father's house. And it goes abnormally long, almost as if something jumped inside my body. I just didn't want to stop. Hell, I couldn't stop. After 3 hours, I'm so exhausted. I hop in the shower, clean up, change the sheets, and pass out, only to be awakened at 3:15 a.m. to what feels like someone pulling me up by my neck. Opening my eyes and looking around, I'm literally outside of my body. I can see myself laying nude in bed. That's when I hear this voice saying, "You are now mine. Looking in the direction of the voice is this werewolf-looking creature with these glowing red eyes staring at me, and it's holding me in the air by my neck. Now, I know this is going to sound crazy, but on the other side of him was this humanoid figure that looked like it was made of broken mirrors. Absolutely terrified, I tried to talk, but my lips wouldn't move. So I thought in my head, Jesus, Lord, Jesus, help me. And just then, I'm slammed back down into my body. Now I wake up bouncing in the bed, and when my eyes open, I see that mirror-looking entity in the doorway. It looks just like a human being, except for it's made of broken and chipped glass. That encounter freaked me out so much that I haven't done anything like that since. Then I started doing my research on different sexual sins and how they let demonic entities into your body. Now, what really freaked me out was when I was listening to the Dogman 101 and learned about the same demonic werewolf-looking like entity. I remember watching that video and saying to myself, damn it, that's the same thing that was in my bedroom.
I'm waiting on some action to jump off in here. You heard what Mr. Molly said. We top flight security of the world, Craig. Not just the city, the world. Been jacked by Santa Claus, all kinds of. They need security in the world, Craig.
One thing, calm down. Slow your roll. Don't let that man pump you up, Day-Day, and get your shot out here. We ain't no damn top flight security of the world. We Craig and Day-Day. So just kick back, relax. You heard what happened to the last security guards.
You didn't even hear what happened to the last security guard. So I'm going here. Just do your job and I'm going to do mine.
In 2002, my cousin hooked me up with a job at a medical research facility right outside of Huntsville, Alabama. It's a 3-floor building with a basement. Now, the way this job worked was my shift started at 10 p.m. By 11:30, I had to turn off all the lights on all floors, including the basement, which was the morgue. The job was actually pretty simple and laid back. And once you got through turning off all the lights, the job was just to sit there the rest of the night and make sure nobody broke into the building. They had one of those guard booths with one of those little small lamps, and you were kind of like a light in the darkness of the building. Well, the first night on the job, I'm taking it real serious because my cousin gave these people word I would handle my business. I get down to the morgue, turn the lights off progressively, and as you're working down the hallway, turning the lights off, you're moving, leaving the darkness behind you. Imagine a scene. I'm going room to room, turning off lights, and the hallway gets darker and darker as you go. When you get to the end of that hallway, the only way up is one of those old school freight elevators. You know, the kind where you got to pull the door down and it has the window in it? Well, you pull that door down, hit the button, and then the elevator takes you up. So now all the lights are off. The elevator, which is at the end of the hallway, is the only thing that has lights. I lift the door up, go in, close the door down behind me, and hit the button. But just before that elevator starts to move, I hear this whispering sound, like straight up demonic whisper. Nonetheless, I head upstairs to the guard desk, sit down, and I'm chilling, right? And then you start hearing sounds coming from all over the building. And I know without a doubt, I'm the only person in the building. But it's the first night. I'm not running out on this job on my first night. No way, no how. So I put my headphones on and sit there and listen to music the rest of the night, even though it's spooky as hell. Now, the second night on the job was my last night on the job, because I go through the routine. At the 3rd floor, down to the 2nd floor, down to the 1st floor, turning off all the lights. When I get to the basement, I go down the hallway, room to room, turning the lights off. And now, when I'm turning those lights, you're starting to hear crazy, like metal clanking and things falling over. We're not talking about small sounds. We're talking about big sounds, like metal locker doors closing and metal cups falling off countertops. But mind you, I didn't see not one metal cup in the basement. Now imagine a scene. I'm turning off those lights and fleeing the darkness at the same time. When I get down to the part where the elevator is, I swing the elevator door up, then pull it back down, hit the button. And you know how they got that little window on the elevator that I was telling you about before. Well, the elevator is taking an abnormally long time to move. And when I look in that window, I see what looks like these glowing red eyes getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Just when the elevator starts to move up, I get a clear view as to what the hell those eyes are attached to. And it's this creature. It looks like a freaking werewolf with glowing red eyes. And I understand the elevator is slowly rising, but that little door and window stays stationary. Well, as I'm going up, those eyes are locked on me. As that elevator moves all the way up, and I can't see the window anymore by my feet. Now, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I was brave and bold. None of that. I get to the first floor, walk out the closest exit I can find, lock that door behind me, and go home. And nigga, when I tell you I couldn't wait to quit that job, I couldn't wait to quit that job because I'm outside the place at 7:30 the next morning. It opens at 8 a.m. and I give them all of the uniform, the flashlight, the keys, go into the boss's office, and I tell him, listen, I'm sorry for inconveniencing you like this, but I'm going to have to quit this job. When he goes on to inquire about why I'm quitting, I tell him, listen, I'm not built for this y'all got going on around here. Now get this, he knew without a doubt something freaky and weird was going on in that basement, because the only words that come out of his mouth is, it's the basement, right? And I'm like, hell yeah, it's the basement. Then he goes on attempting to talk me into working one more shift while he gets the old security guard back on the phone and sees if he can talk him back in to coming to work. And I'm like, nah, bruh, you not listening to me. I'm not working here no more. You can mail my check for the 2 days I work to my house, but I don't want nothing to do with this building. Y'all got some freaky weird going on around here. I've been an active real estate investor for 15 years, and my primary focus as an investor is on tax liens. Now, if you don't know anything about tax liens, basically when a person buys a piece of property or they buy a piece of vacant land, there's taxes that's due to the state or the city. Well, if the person doesn't pay their taxes, you can pay the taxes for them, and then there's a prescription period where they get an opportunity to pay you back plus interest. If they don't pay you back in a timely manner, which is normally 3 to 5 years, you can actually foreclose on that property and take it. With that being said, that led to me accumulating a hell of a lot of just vacant land. And every now and then I'm able to sell one off and fund my next deal. Well, I'm at an auction in Columbus, Mississippi, when I see this other well-known investor. We start talking, and I'm telling him I'm looking to pick up some land in Alabama. That's when he tells me, he says, listen, I got a nice sweet piece of land, been holding on to it for a while. I really need to cash out. He said, it's a great piece to own, man. It's got a pipeline on it with a land lease, and it brings in $200 a month. Understand, vacant land in the boonies, that's bringing in $200 a month over a 15-year lease, man, that's some good money. So we come to a handshake agreement and go our separate ways. Well, a couple of days later, his title company calls me on the phone to set up the transaction. I'm like, whoa. Slow your roll. We ain't at that point yet. You can send me over the contract. I'll sign it. But we don't need to be scheduling no closing dates or nothing like that because I got to go see this property. The next day I head out to the property, and it's not quite what was advertised because it starts on the side of the road, and then it's a ridge that goes straight up for probably about a solid 100 yards. And then it flattens off because the only access road that led to the top of that hill was owned by the pipeline company that crossed the property. The only way to actually put your eyes on the land was to walk up that ridge. So I get out the car and I get to walking up the ridge using trees, pulling myself up, only to get to the top of that ridge and realize there's another ridge that leads straight back down. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, no problem. We still need to walk this land and just make sure ain't nothing crazy going on out here. So I start back down the ridge. This one isn't that steep, and then I head back up, and it flattens out to flat land. The land looked fantastic. There were trees that I knew I could sell immediately and get some of my money back. I was standing there, cell phone in hand, snapping pictures of trees, And then I hear this howling coming from the woods behind me. Now listen, I'm not an outdoorsman or a hunter. I'm a guy who loves to buy and sell real estate. However, owning the amount of land that I do own, I've been out on property in the middle of the night and heard crazy spooky things. So the howling, I'm thinking to myself, okay, maybe it's some kind of pack of coyotes going at it back there. I'm not going to be here long, don't matter. I finished taking my pictures. Now remember, to get to this point, I had to work my way, get out of the car, work myself up a ridge to a little plateau, back down a ridge about half the length of the first one, and then back up again, and then back to this plateau where I'm at. Now, when I first came up that ridge, I worked my way up on the left-hand side. On my way back, I'm going back down to the right of where I came up at. And I swear to you, as I'm walking along, I hear that howling again. But this time it's closer, like it's moving in on me. And you know how it is when you find yourself in a situation where the hair starts to lift up on your arms and on the back of your neck. I'm starting to feel that kind of electric energy, like the hair is standing up. And I'm not comfortable. So now I'm speed walking down that ridge, and I'm headed back up the other side to the next plateau. Now, right before I get to the peak of that plateau, I look over. It's a pile of bones. And I'm not talking about 2 or 3 bones. It was a pile of bones as tall and as wide as like your average restaurant chair. It was high enough if I wanted to sit on them, I could sit on them and then stand back up like a regular chair. So now I'm like, what the hell is out here that leaves that kind of pile of bones? So now I'm really freaking out. I'm hearing the hollering. I done seen the pile of bones. And now I hit the top of that next plateau. When I get to that plateau, I start hearing something down that ridge that I just came up. I'm not much of an outdoorsman, but I know if there's some kind of predator in the woods, you don't want to give it your back and you don't want to run from it. But this ridge put me in a bad situation because there's no way you go down this ridge backwards. If you turn around and try and go down this ridge backwards, you're going to break your neck and die. So I had 2 choices. I could speed walk down that ridge, which would eventually have me moving so fast it was like I was running anyway, or I could just run and leap and jump and tumble down that ridge. So I shoot over to the middle and I run, I leap, I jump, I tumble, I spin, I fall until I get to the bottom of the ridge. Completely destroyed my outfit, lost one of my shoes. But as far as I was concerned, I was safe, and when standing to my feet, I got full confirmation that what I did was right, because you hear this growl come from the top of that ridge, and the sound projection was like funny because it was like the growl shot at me like a bullet. I felt it go through my skin, my body, getting warm. That was more than enough for me. I hop in the car, pull off, getting the hell away from there, and the first thing I did was call him. I tell him I don't give a damn how much money that property is bringing in per month. I just left there, and there's some kind of wild animal there. I don't want to own anything like that. That's when he goes on to tell me the reason why he's trying to get rid of it is because of what's out there. And I took extreme offense to him trying to pawn off a piece of property on me that had some kind of freaking monster on it. Hell no. I told him to kiss my and hung up the phone. It's hard to get black folks to talk about the paranormal, but I wanted to talk to my grandmother about Dogman to see if there's anything she could tell me. Hell, she's 91 years old, quick as a whip, and that led to her telling me all kinds of stuff. So I'm going to start with the rougarou or Dogman, but oh boy, do I have some stuff for you. So, her uncle, they called him handsome because he was the most handsome man in town. And by town, we ain't talking about modern day amenities. Back in them days, they were poor, but they had their pride and they worked hard. We're talking about them old color purple days. Well, Handsome was a musician. He went to the juke joint, played the guitar, could sing, and all the women lost their minds over him. But he had a rule: he never ever messed with no married woman. Nonetheless, the other black men got jealous of all the attention, and one day he's playing at the juke joint and the fella pulls a revolver, starts shooting at him from the back row. Handsome runs out of the back door, and the four of them chase him into the swamps. Now he's hiding up in the moss-covered trees with moss all over his body, listening to them plot as to how they're going to kill him. They search a bit longer, and they leave, saying, "That nigga gotta go home. We gonna get his when he go home." So he stays in that tree all night till morning. When he comes down, he goes back to the juke joint to see about getting some money so he can leave town. The owner was a cutthroat bastard, told him to sit right there and wait. He needed to go home to get more money. So the owner leaves, goes to find the guys who wanted to kill him because he didn't want to pay Handsome his performance fee. But her uncle, Handsome, was smart, had a bad feeling. So he left and went into the woods on the back of the juke joint, right? He waited and watched as all those men went in the door looking for him. Then he ran home to get some clothes and decided to leave town with what he had. Well, he's on his way out of town and sees the local hoodoo priestess. The lady loved him. She loved his music. But she was married. But she asks him where he's going, and he tells her he's got to get out of town because they're trying to kill him. When she asked him why they were trying to kill him, had he messed with one of their wives, he says no, but he wasn't sticking around. So instead of letting him leave town, she took him home. In a back shed, she made a token for him and told him to go into the woods and sit, that the men will come looking for him. And when they do, run deep into the swamps until something stops you from running. And when it stops you, stand still, don't move. Wait, look and listen and see what happens to those men. Now, in exchange for her help, she demanded that he make love to her. So he did. Then he took that token and headed into the woods. At sundown, sure enough, 5 men came looking for him. So he fled into the swamps, mosquitoes, water, waist deep, mud. But he kept moving, staying ahead of the men pursuing him, even when they were firing shots at him. Somehow, he managed to lose them. But now he's tired, so he's resting, leaning up against a tree. And when he looks up, there it is, the rougarou, a wolf-like beast on all fours coming down the side of a tree. It sniffs the hair on his head, growls, then hops down from that tree and went in the direction of the other men. And that's when her uncle stood there, frozen. The man didn't move an inch, and he heard them dying one by one. Hours passed. He stood there, too afraid to move. Tired and exhausted, he fell asleep leaning on that very same tree. The next morning, he goes back into town, and the first person he saw was the hoodoo priestess. She told him that he was free of the evil men who hated him. Well, now, Handsome went back to that juke joint and demanded his money, and the owner paid all of it to him. Then offered him part ownership in the business, saying that he could be the in-house entertainment, that instead of him getting paid, they could start splitting the proceeds from the door and the bar. Well, Uncle Handsome refused, took his money, and left town. Now, Grandma told me the next time she saw him was 5 years later. He was an apparition, sitting on the front porch. Everyone wondered what happened to him. She was the only one that knew he had died.
The Dark Waters channel is for entertainment purposes only. Although information in these stories can be traced back to relevant and true sources, Dark Waters strongly discourages its viewers, listeners, and subscribers from visiting the site of incidents and encounters discussed or revealed on the show. In other words, we will not be held responsible if you are attacked by a dogman, molested by a bigfoot, bitten by vampires, chased by chupacabras, abducted by aliens, accosted by the men in black, investigated or arrested by the local law enforcement, CIA, FBI, NSA, EPA, BLM, or another alphabet group, whether on U.S. soil or abroad. Thank you for tuning in, and enjoy the show.
When you want a hot meal without a big deal, what are you gonna pick? Hot Pockets!
Dog Waters, you asked me to write my encounter down, so here it goes. I'm a ranch hand, and I work in East Texas. For the past 24 months, my employment situation has been a little shaky. I worked odd jobs here and there, but nothing real steady. So when I heard that the Rogers Farm was hiring, I decided to give it a shot. Now, there were these rumors going around about the strange occurrences on that farm, but based on my situation, I really had no choice but to go after this job. And regardless of whatever I found out there, even if I managed to only stay there for a few weeks, it was way better than what I was doing at the moment. So I headed to the property. When I arrived there, I parked and got out of the truck and looked around. This was supposed to be a farm, but in actuality, it was nothing more than a house on a huge plot of land. Overgrown grass, dilapidated fences. It was a mess. I walked up to the front door and knocked, and that was my first time meeting the old man Roger. He was a pretty cool guy, but he was old. He invited me into the house and to his kitchen table, set me down, and started to explain to me what he needed done around his property. Poured us a cup of coffee as we sat there and talked. He explained to me that all the grass on his property needed to be cut, and that a number of his fences were broken and needed to be welded. He also told me that once that was done, there was a job painting the house, rebuilding the chicken coops. His list went on and on and on. While he was talking, I looked around and noticed the family photos all around the house. And I asked him, "Excuse me, sir, it looks like you have a pretty large family. Is there anyone else who stays here with you?" That's when Mr. Roger told me that he had 2 sons that would come by and check on him, but no one other than him stayed at the property. He went on to explain that his wife had died of cancer and his daughters had moved out of town, and all he had left really was just his farm. Now, I really didn't like the idea of negotiating compensation with an old man, but I needed the money. So I asked him, "What rate are you paying?" And in true form of any negotiation, old man Roger threw the question right back at me. "What rate would you like?" Now, for most people, this situation is a bit of a conundrum. But not me. I needed to pay my light bill, I needed to pay my cell phone bill, and I definitely needed to pay my car note. So I told him, "How does $35 an hour sound to you, Mr. Roger?" And to my surprise, he quickly agreed. Now, looking back on the situation, that should have been the very first clear sign to me that something was wrong. But again, I was in need of money. I really wasn't paying attention to those kind of things at that point in time. We shook hands, I took my coffee, and headed out to the truck. The first thing I needed to do was get a true assessment of the property. So I drove my truck around the side of the house and onto the back side of the property. His farm pretty big, a good 12 to 18 acres. Just cutting the grass alone was going to take some time. And I had to cut the grass before I could even see what was going on with the fences. As I drove around his property, I started to notice little small things, like his chicken coop was knocked over, and one of his barn doors looked like it had been broken or taken off the hinges. Again, looking back on it, these are all signs that something crazy and weird was going on, but I was blinded by the money. After I had taken time and driven around the property, I decided I would take a shot at cutting the grass. So I drove my truck up to the barn, parked it, hopped out, and headed in. When I walked in, there was this strange smell. It wasn't quite like any animal that I had ever smelled before, but I didn't think much of it. I hopped on a tractor and tried to crank it up. I had to tinker with the fuel line a bit in order to get it started, but soon I was off and running. I had been cutting the grass for about an hour and a half and was really feeling good about myself. For once, I felt like things were turning around for me. $35 an hour was good money, and for the first 2 days, really all I was going to be doing was cutting grass. All was well, at least till I got to the very back side of the property. In that area, there's this thick row of trees and bushes, so thick that you can barely see through it. And as I was driving the tractor back in that area, I started to get this strange feeling, like eyes were looking at me from every angle. And all the rumors that people said about something being weird with the property came rushing back into my mind. So, to try and block it out, I plugged in my earbuds and popped on some music on my cell phone. I continued to cut for another 10 to 15 minutes, and then the tractor hit something, and this thin white cloud of dust started shooting up in the air. When I stopped the tractor, got down and take a look, there were these bones everywhere, but it was covered by all the thick grass and brush. And as I took a closer look, it was cattle bones, but not one or two. It looked like someone had slaughtered 20 to 30 different cattle and left them right here in this area. Now that was weird. And the next weird thing was, as I rode down the western fence line, I started to notice these claw marks on the trees, high up on the trees, 10 to 12 feet in the trees. None of it made sense. So I finished that day out and headed back to the house to talk to Mr. Roger about getting an advance on my pay. I figured I could talk him into at least 3 days of advance pay. That way I could pay my truck note. And again, to my surprise, he agreed. Not only did he agree to pay me 3 days, he paid me 5 days in advance. And as I was walking out of the front door headed back to my truck, I said, "Hey, it looks like a bunch of your cattle died on the back end of the property. There's nothing but bones there. What do you want me to do about it?" The old man looked at me square in my eyes and said, "Leave that area uncut and stay away from there. Let's just focus on the front side of the property and getting it squared away." And that was how my first day at my new job ended. It was rather uneventful. But the next day, oh my God. I arrived at the property at sunrise. I needed to finish cutting the grass, and my to-do list was long. I had to fix the barn door, purchase lumber to build the new chicken coops, and get started on the first section of the fence repair. When I walked into the barn, I was assaulted by the strongest scent of urine I've ever smelled in my life. It made my nose run and my eyes watered. It smelled like 100 dogs had taken a piss all over the place. The tractor seat itself was soaked. And when I say soaked, I mean there was a puddle of piss just sitting there. What the did this? I think I even said it to myself out loud as I walked out of the door headed to the house to get the garden hose. That's when I noticed for the very first time that there were bars on every window and door of the house. And not just regular bars. These were custom-made metal bars. I grabbed the hose, drug it back to the barn, washed down the tractor, and was off to work. By 12 noon, I had finished cutting all the grass and turned my attention to fixing the barn door. But the thing was hopeless. The entire door needed to be rebuilt. It looked like someone had ran into it with the tractor. While I was standing there making a list of all the materials I needed to fix it, a man came walking out of the tree line, climbed the fence, and introduced himself. He said, "Hi, my name is Sam." Now, this Sam guy was a little shifty. His eyes kept darting left to right, and he was avoiding questions. I said, "Sam, you from around here?" "Yep, smell that urine. It's all over the place, real strong." "Well, what was it? Is it dogs?" "Yeah, this farm has been through a whole lot of tragedy." It was like this dude was hearing a different question than the one I was asking him. "So you do live nearby. How long have you lived in this area, Sam?" Then he said some real crazy stuff. "It all starts when you smell the piss. By tomorrow, they'll be all over the place." "They? Who are they?" "If I was you, I'd be looking to get on down the road and stay away from here." Then this dude Sam just walks away back into the tree line just as suddenly as he came. This completely threw me for a loop. But by the evening time, I had gotten the barn door fixed and the place was looking much better. I went around to the front of the house and knocked on the door to tell the old man I was leaving, but he didn't answer. So I walked around the back side of the house, but there was no sign of him. When I thought about it, there was a car that had pulled up during the daytime, so I figured the man had taken off somewhere for a ride to get groceries or something. When I got in my truck and started to drive off, I couldn't help but think about what Sam said. What the hell was he talking about? Who were they? The following day, I would certainly find out. The next day, I arrived at the farm a little bit later than normal and went straight to work. You see, the day before, I wasn't able to get to the fences, so I began walking the fence line, looking for places that needed to be welded. And as I'm walking, I start to hear this movement up in the trees. It was about 50, 60 yards away, but it definitely was a sound coming from up in the trees. And as I continued to walk, the sound seemed like it was paralleling me as I went along. It's like something was there just out of my eyesight, and it was stalking me. I started to feel real crazy, that the hair started standing up on my arms. I got a lump in my throat, and I started sweating. I felt like I was in danger. And I decided the best thing for me to do was go get my truck and bring it back to the spot where I was working, just in case there was some type of wild animal I could hop in and pull off. It took me about 30 minutes to get all my equipment ready and set up in the bed of the truck, and I decided to park creating a 90-degree angle with the fence line. And as I'm there welding the first section, things are going good. I get to the second section, things are going great. I get to the third section, and it's right before the sun goes down. And I start getting that crazy feeling again. But this time it's way more intense. I take off my welding hammer and put it in the bed of the truck and just start looking around. And I start picking up the pieces of metal pipe so I can get out of there. I had just picked up the very last metal rod off the ground, turned to put it in the bed of the truck, when I felt and heard this growl. Man, this wasn't a dog, this wasn't a cougar, this wasn't anything I'd ever heard. It was so loud and so strong. You know how you have the surround sound set up in your house? You turn it up real loud, and then there's this growling roar, and everything in the house vibrates? That's what it was like, except for this wasn't a movie. The metal pipe I had in my hand began to vibrate, and I felt this vibration in the palm of my hands. I didn't want to turn around. Honestly, I wanted to run and get in my truck, but something made me look back behind me, and I wish I would have never done that. Had I not seen this thing, I probably could have kept working there. But when I turned around, this creature was standing 30 feet away from me. And this thing was huge and had a colossal sized wolf head. It stood there staring at me, showing its teeth, and then those eyes. Its eyes were this yellow color with this huge black pupil. Once I made eye contact with this thing, my mind was telling me to run, but it was like there was a disconnect between the signal in my brain and my body because I couldn't move. This thing's chest expanded and contracted as it breathed, and for a second I thought it was a prank. And I don't know if it was fear or my nerves or what, but somehow I dropped that metal pipe out of my hand, it hit the bed of the truck, and then rolled to the ground. That's when I heard a footstep coming from my left side in my blind spot. And I thought to myself, I have to go. So I scrambled into the bed of my truck, up over on top of the cab, and I slid down right in front of the driver's side door, hopped in and pulled off. As I'm driving away, I looked through the rearview mirror. That's when I see another creature. It's smaller and more slim, but it still looks like a dog, and it's walking towards this bigger one. Man, I drove straight to the local bar and got me a drink. And when I walked in and sat down, the bartender Everett just looked at me and said, "We've been wondering how long you gonna last out at that property. Looks like you finally saw those things, right?" Everett went on to explain to me that what I saw was dogmen. Never heard about this my entire life. He said that they had a bet going on exactly how long I would last out there at that property. Then he went on to tell me the old man had actually left the property and went to his daughter's house, and that this old man had been hiring people to work on that property for years and then leaving. Oh, and Sam, the crazy dude that walked up to me, according to Everett, that was his way of warning me about what was out there. When I learned about all this, I was pissed off. I didn't give the old man his money back, and I damn sure didn't go back out to that property.
Well, new tonight, one popular East Texas marina is now offering boat tours on beautiful Lake Palestine.
CBS 19's Jacqueline Sarkeesian tested the waters today and joins us with the sights and sounds. Jacqueline.
Just outside the city limits of Chandler, you'll find Flat Creek Marina and RV Park. Doug Hassel bought it about a month ago and believes it's one of the many hidden gems in East Texas. And what better way to get the family together on a scorching summer day than a relaxing boat ride?
We're going to be doing tours on the little Craig Cat two-seater catamaran boat, and they're a lot of fun. Very stable, very safe, unsinkable. I've tested them, and I haven't been able to sink one yet.
So if you guys want to have some fun and try one of these boats for yourself, we have all the information you need to know on CBS19.tv. Reporting on Lake Palestine, Jacqueline Sarkeesian, CBS 19.
Lake Palestine is a freshwater lake located southwest of Tyler, Texas, right along Highway 155. Camping and fishing. For a fisherman like myself, this was the dream place for retirement. So 5 years ago, I moved to Dogwood City. 3-bedroom, 2-bath, modest house with a garage. And as I alluded to before, my number one pastime is fishing. My number two is golf. And this area has it all. But when we start talking about my encounter with Dogman, it really dampened the mood around my retirement, because I'm thinking of this as my own personal paradise. But little did I know, these creatures consider it their paradise as well. Look, I get up early in the morning before daybreak, take my boat to the dock, launch it, and I decide to head north by northwest, going up the lake towards Chandler and veering into this cove on the west side of Chandler. So I'm there about 50 yards from the bank, trolling along, casting my line.
And you know how it is before the sun comes up over the horizon? The sky is this kind of reddish, grayish color. And there's enough light for me to see, but it's not bright out there. I reel my line in, cast again. Starting to get some nibbles here and there. And that's when I hear this gigantic kabloosh coming from my right-hand side. Something had clearly jumped into the water about 45 to 50 yards to my right. And how do I know that? Because I saw the waves rippling in my direction. So I stand there quietly for the next 5 minutes, just looking at the surface of the water, trying to see if someone or something surfaces. But there's no sound and no further movement, so I start fishing again. And I need you to understand something. My trolling motor is still on. I am in motion. I'm moving in that same direction, but on an angle away from the bank. 10 minutes later, I got a fish on the line, and I'm reeling them in. I get it to the side of the boat, up and in. Now I'm at the back of the boat, putting it in a cooler, when I feel the front end of my boat take a dip. Again, to be clear with you, I'm out on this lake alone, and the anchor is not in the water. In fact, my anchor and the rope that goes with it are sitting right on the front edge of my boat. So picture it, I'm bent over, putting the fish in the ice box. When I straighten my body up and turn around to look, there's this muscular black forearm resting right on the front tip of my boat. And what looks like a hand with these long freaking claws. 2 of those claws rest right where the anchor meets the rope. Now, I'm pretty sure over the time listening to stories, you heard people say stuff like, I couldn't believe my eyes and I thought I was hallucinating, but not me. I didn't know exactly what I was seeing, but I knew for a fact that I was seeing it. How? Because I felt the weight shift to the front of the boat again. And whatever this was that had its arm on my boat was pretty freaking heavy. Oh my God. That's when I see another claw coming out of the water, grabbing the front tip of my boat, and then what looked like 2 sharp, pointy ears. Now forgive me hesitating here for a moment because I'm looking for the words to describe exactly the emotions I was feeling at that moment. Panic is not quite accurate. It was more than a sense of panic. It was a gut feeling. You know, that twisting and turning inside of your stomach that lets you know that you're in danger? That's exactly what I was feeling. Something internally was telling me that whatever the hell this was had no good intentions whatsoever. So I crank up the main engine of my boat, flip it down into reverse, and next thing you know, I'm backing away from there. I get up to about 15 miles an hour, and I see the very first forearm with the claw that was wrapped into the rope with the anchor fall into the water along with my freaking anchor. And sweet baby Jesus, let me tell you, within 30 seconds, that anchor catches to something on the bottom of the lake. My boat slows down, then jerks forward. Not wanting to tear my entire boat up, I kill the engine. At this point in time, true panic and fear sets in. There was no way in hell that I was going to the front of that boat and physically pulling that anchor up out of the water. So I'm digging around, going through my tackle boxes, looking for my hunting knife. Once I get it, I lay down flat on my belly, right at the front of the boat, trying to cut that rope. And please, I need you to understand, in all the confusion and panic, I never turned the trolley motor off. So as I'm there trying to cut this rope free, the motor is driving me forward, straight back towards the anchor. I'm there like, oh my God, Jesus Christ, please help me get this rope cut. Those were the most terrifying 60 to 120 seconds of my life. When I get to the final strand and I cut loose, all I could do is roll over on my back, hop up, go to the back and hit the engine. Vroom! And I was out of there. Let me tell you something. On the ride home, I was pretty shook up. I'm a grown man, and I was in tears. I'd never experienced, seen, or felt anything like that in my life. And as with any other traumatic experience, my mind kept replaying in slow motion how I had to lay there and cut that rope, stroke after stroke after stroke after stroke. Finally, at home, sitting on my sofa, my mind raced, trying to figure out who I can call and talk to about what happened. The only person that I figured would believe me was my fishing buddy, Trevor. So I called Trev. Trevor, I was out there fishing the lake today, way up on the northwest end, and I swear to God, something tried to climb on my boat. I saw hairy black forearms and claws and 2 long, sharp, pointy ears. Trevor, please tell me you know what the hell this is. And what Trevor told me then was the very first time that I had ever heard of Dogman. And according to him, these quote-unquote harmless creatures are all over the area. Now, Trevor's my boy, and to this day, we still go fishing on that exact same lake. But I gotta totally disagree with him. Because that thing that was climbing up on my boat wasn't climbing up to listen to the radio or read the freaking newspaper. That thing clearly had intentions on eating me.